The ACC preseason media poll is here. If it's accurate, it doesn't spell good things for the league.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. Realignment, coaching carousel, the portal, and so much more. Getting you ready for a season that starts in just over 3 weeks. Always got you covered. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Kenton Gibbs, Locked On ACC, joining me here on today's show. And the reason this poll could be problematic, if true for the league, Kenton, is if Florida State is truly this much better than everybody else, and Clemson is the number 2 team, then in 2024, with a 12-team playoff, the ACC is a one-bid conference.
So here's the thing, and I don't want anybody to take offense to this. I know I wasn't there this year, and you know, I love all my people, and I missed them at ACC Media Days this year. But media is just like any other job. You have people who are really good at it. You have people that are so-so at it. You have people that are not so good at it. And you know what that mean of everybody who's like, meh, too worse at it will do in situations where you're not exactly sure who the winner is? You lean on what's comfortable. You lean on the last team to win it. You say, hey, I'm not sure this conference is up for grabs. Let's go ahead and go with the team that feels most comfortable and familiar. Because if you were to ask most people, hey, give me 2 pass catchers from Florida State. And I'm not going to say most people, but I'll say this. If you ask a lot of media members who were there, give me 2 pass catchers from Florida State, any 2. They may struggle to name 2. And that's not to say, hey, people aren't doing their due diligence, not doing their job. I'm just saying Florida State is the team that won. They are always in the headlines for something, be it good, be it bad, be it off the field, be it on the field. Florida State is always in the headlines. And so do I think that they're the best team in the conference? On paper, I would say they have a slight edge over the field. I would not say it's a landslide by any means.
That's encouraging to hear if you're ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, who, of course, is going to try to get as many teams into the 12-team playoff as he can. That's the job of every commissioner nowadays. But for those who have not seen or heard about the poll, it goes something like this. Florida State, with 81 first-place votes, is first. Clemson second at 55 in terms of their number of first-place votes. Miami with 17. I don't think that gap tracks a whole heck of a lot, because I don't know what Cade Klubnik has shown me that Cam Ward hasn't. You have maybe the most dynamic running backfield in the conference with a good offensive line down in Coral Gables. You have a talented roster. Mario Cristobal going into year 3, I think, is going to have things rolling at least to be an 8 or 9 win team, which is about where I think I'm going to have Clemson. I've been writing out some record predictions, two of which actually are coming up later in today's show. Notre Dame and Alabama. Ever heard of them? I'm going to predict their records right here on the show. But anyway, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State at 4. I actually like that. I think that's an appropriate place for the Wolfpack to be. Louisville, Virginia Tech, SMU, UNC, Georgia Tech, Cal. That's an ACC school. Duke, Syracuse, Pitt, Boston College, who got 1 first-place vote. Shout out to whoever gave the Eagles that vote, because that's a troll job. Wake Forest, Virginia, and Stanford's last. What was your biggest takeaway from the rest of this poll, Kenton? Because, quite frankly, maybe it's because I've grown up in a Pac-12 footprint, I thought Cal was appropriately placed. Stanford being last, I thought was actually kind of crazy. I think the Cardinal could push to be a bowl team this year. Call me insane, or a Pac-12 homer, do whatever you like. I don't think the Cardinal are the last place team in this conference. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me. What else stood out to you?
You know, another thing that stood out to me was that a lot of people believe in Louisville's floor, but not their ceiling. So what do I mean by that? Louisville was ranked 5th out of every team in the conference. They're the only team in the top 5 without a single vote for champion. I'm sorry, they're the only team in the top 6 without a single vote for anybody believing they'll be champions.
Yeah, because Tech has got 5 votes in there.
Exactly. Virginia Tech behind them had more votes than them. Boston College, the Eagles, have more votes than them. So what?
Okay, but that's a troll job. So like somebody,
for sure.
Somebody was like, this will be fun.
Okay, I'll give you that one. Georgia Tech has more votes than them. You see what I'm saying? Like at a point, it's very interesting to see that people believe in Brom's ability to move a roster to a certain extent, but I believe that many people share my sentiments around Tyler Shuck. That's just like I can't trust him. I cannot trust him. Everybody says if he's healthy, he's great, and it's like if ifs and buts were berries and nuts, squirrels would never starve. We live in the real world. You have to do with what you have, and he just has not seemed to get it done. But I will say this. For the rest of the conference outside of Louisville and everybody believing their floor but not their ceiling, I think that there is a lot of optimism around SMU that is warranted to some extent because I think they have the best returning group of pass catcher quarterback combination in all the conference. But with that being said, I'm very intrigued to see how they hold up in the trenches in a step up from what we saw them in before, where they, crash and burn and struggle to protect Preston Stone and give him the ability and time to find those star-studded wide receiver cast on the edge? Or will they pull a Vegas Knights here, where their first year in this new league, all of a sudden, they're ready to go to the championship already? I'm very excited to see which side they fall on, because anybody who knows me knows I have fallen in love with SMU ever since I saw Pony Excess. Free my guy Sherwood Blunt. Free all of the boosters. They were just doing what was going to be. They were ahead of their time. They were just a little ahead of the game on NIL. They were a few decades early. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I listened to an episode of Locked On Seattle Mariners recently, and one of the hosts on the show said, "I'm never wrong. I'm just early." That was SMU. That's SMU. They weren't wrong. They weren't breaking the rules. They were just a little bit early. The exactly. The Virginia Tech angle, I think, is fascinating here. If you told me that Virginia Tech finishes above where they are picked, I'd say they might be the most likely team outside of the top three to do that, because I agree that Louisville is a high floor team. I think NC State is a high floor team. The ceiling, though, there's something that's left to be desired in recent years. Now, the same could be said for Virginia Tech, except they haven't had the expectations that a Louisville or an NC State have had in the last couple of years that they have coming into this season. You got a returning coach who's had them on an upward trajectory. You got a returning quarterback who needs to be more efficient as a passer, but is a prolific runner. You expect them to be strong on the defensive side of the ball. It's a tough home environment to go into. They have some big games that come into Blacksburg this year. I think of the teams ranked fourth or lower, I'd peg Virginia Tech as the most likely to pop into the top three by the time the season comes to a close.
So the questions around Virginia Tech for me are the defensive line. They have a lot of guys who can move. They have a lot of guys. Their defense is predicated on a lot of slanting and a lot of things in terms of, hey, we're going to cause creation, or we're going to cause confusion. We're going to create chaos in order to get into the backfield. The only problem with that is at some point in time, you got to line up and play base defense. You got to say, I got this gap right here, and I'm going to make that matter. Now, I know that I'm getting into really inside baseball here, but the reality is this. They were one of the worst teams in the conference last year against the run. That is for a reason. They did not have a single – I believe they have one defensive tackle that was above 300 pounds last year. This year, I believe they either have one or none. They need big fellas. They need some girth and tonnage on the inside that they're like, hey, we're going to hold down the fort, because if I can make you throw at Dorian Strong, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. But if you can have a game plan that takes one of the best players in the conference out of the game, essentially, that's a little bit tougher. So I do agree that they have QB1 that I think is the best out of everybody from 4 down. Kyron Drones is the guy. If you watch that young man play, don't watch those stats. Watch the game. Turn on your eyes. Turn on that TV. He's a dog. He can get it done, and he can give it to you however you want it. He's got the deep ball. He can run it. He just needs to, like you said, be more efficient, work on the timing and all that good stuff. But with that in mind, he's had a full off season as a starter. No doubts about who was the guy like their work going in the last season. He is the guy. Definitive, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so he, with Byshaw Tootin, what a dynamic rushing backfield. You know, outside of Miami with Ward, Martinez, and Fletcher, I don't think there's anybody that can claim to come close to what they'll be able to put out between those two. I see the vision. I really do. However, if you're talking 4 or lower, I think this is the most talented NC State team that we've ever seen offensively in terms of Dave Doeren's era. I have not seen one time where I could look man for man up and down the roster and say the offense is as talented. But a lot like Louisville with Tyler Shuck, the question is if Grayson McCall is healthy, if he can be good in that health area, NC State's going to be fine. But if that offensive line cannot keep him upright and whole, it may be a tough year. But even with that, that's where I think NC State is different, because you look at their backup quarterbacks, you say Lex Thomas ain't, a guy who has a ton of experience. Anybody who knows about the Thomas last name at NC State, you know what it's about. And CJ Bailey is well behind him. He looks phenomenal. He's showing everybody he wasn't a product of Williams. They were just two guys that were amazing playing together.
Kenton Gibbs, Locked On ACC, Locked On Wolfpack as well. No surprise, he's high on NC State. I am as well. I'll just have one final note on Virginia Tech here. They play 6 road games this year. Vanderbilt, Old Dominion, Miami, Stanford, Syracuse, and Duke. Not exactly the toughest gauntlet of road games to go through. Another reason to like the Hokies this year. Kenton, appreciate the time as always.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to be here, brother.
Coming up next, I'm going to predict Notre Dame's record. It is probably going to be higher than most of you would like to hear for the Irish. Stick around. Before we talk about the Irish, we're talking about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, which is a lot better for you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time just takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. You get a panoramic view of your seat before you arrive because you can see it right there in the app, so you know exactly what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. This is my favorite time of year. Record prediction season. Game by game. On the record. You can hold me accountable for any you would like and fail to give me props for any games that I get correct. It's just the best time of year. I will say up front, as I begin this, I reserve the right on any schedule prediction to have one game right now as a coin flip, toss-up, where I could see it going either way, and I just don't have a strong sense one way or the other. I don't do it often, but it might come up every now and then. Not on Notre Dame's schedule, though. I think I have a great sense about what they're going to be. So they start week 1 against Texas A&M. If they win that football game in College Station, it is a less than 2-point spread. It is one of the best college football games of week 1. It's where College Game Day is actually going to be. I think the most enticing game is Florida and Miami because the loser of that game might want to fire their head coach. At least a segment of the fan base will. But Texas A&M, week 1, game 1 against Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman is under a lot more pressure to win that game. Now, does that define Notre Dame's season? No, not in the negative sense, but in the positive sense it does. If Notre Dame wins that game, they're going to the playoff because the rest of this schedule is absurdly workable. Now, workable to many of you might be a code word for easy. I'm not going to stop you from having that thought. Next week, I think they're going to beat Texas A&M, first of all, because Marcus Freeman against a coach who's coaching his first game, that's just tough. It's asking a lot. If this were week 2, I might feel differently. If Texas A&M had one game to work out the kinks, to shake off the nerves, and to just have everything settled and whatnot, Marcus Freeman is running a much more well-oiled machine at this point because we don't even know how well-oiled the mechanism is in College Station now with Mike Elko. We think it's going to be good. A lot of people also thought Scott Frost in Nebraska was going to be good. I don't think Mike Elko is Scott Frost. I'm just saying a lot of things look good on paper, but we got to see results. I've seen results from Marcus Freeman and company. They've got Riley Leonard at quarterback, and I very much like Riley Leonard as Notre Dame's quarterback. I think he fits what they want to do. I also think he's just kind of a high-level guy who can have another gear unlocked. He's got Tommy Rees as his offensive coordinator, who's solid. Nothing wrong with him. I don't think he's exceptional, but he is good enough to where I think Notre Dame and the roster they have, they go into College Station, get that win. Next week, Northern Illinois. I don't have to explain why they're going to win that game, right? Gosh, I hope not. Next week at Purdue, that one's frisky. That one is frisky. I will just say you have an experienced, capable quarterback in Hudson Card. You have a head coach in Ryan Walters who went 4-8 for the Boilermakers last year. I don't think that's going to be the case forever. I don't know if Walters ever gets Purdue to a 9-10 win level again, especially in a new look Big Ten, but I think Ryan Walters is sharp. That's all I'm saying. So I think Notre Dame's winning the football game. Just watch out for that one. West Lafayette has been known a time or 70 over the years, I'm exaggerating, of course, for effect, to pull an upset. Have you seen Purdue pull an upset? That I have. I've seen it many times. So just know. Those fans know what kind of juice they need to pump into that stadium to rattle the opposing team. That's a lot harder when you have a veteran quarterback like Riley Leonard, though. Then they're back at home. Here's the craziest stretch. That is the last true road game that Notre Dame plays until the last week of the regular season. Do you understand that? And why, when I say workable, this is part of what I am talking about? Road game at Texas A&M, road game at Purdue. Those are solid non-conference games to play. But then, remember, Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, so they don't play a road game until the last week of the season when they go up against USC. So they play Miami of Ohio at home. They play Louisville at home. They play Stanford at home. I think they're winning all three of those games. Miami of Ohio, that's an easy one. Stanford was picked last in the preseason ACC poll for the media. I don't think that is appropriate. I think Stanford's better than that. Can they go into South Bend and beat the Irish? No, I don't think they're quite on that level. I think Troy Taylor can get things going at Stanford to the point where they are at least a bowl team every year, but it's going to take longer because they have to do it the old school way with all high school recruiting, and they don't have access to the transfer portal like everybody else, so he's got to turn the roster around. He's doing it. It's just going to take a couple of cycles. So the Louisville game, though, do I think Tyler Shuck can go into South Bend and beat Notre Dame? Nope. Simple as that. I like Jeff Brom. I think Tyler Shuck is fine. He's capable. But if you're going to beat a team like Notre Dame at home, you'll see this in my record predictions for every team. If you're going to beat a really good team at home, you got to give me a very compelling reason as to why that's going to take place. I don't see it with Notre Dame and Louisville. So I'll take the Irish there. Then, two neutral games that are off-site. Georgia Tech, tougher of the two because the following week is Navy. No disrespect to Navy and the Service Academy, but that's not going to happen. Notre Dame's got higher aspirations, better roster, and you just keep going down the line. You can think of a lot of reasons why Notre Dame is going to beat Navy there. Georgia Tech, yeah, that could be frisky. I could see it happening, is all I'm saying. I could see Brent Key's team having a chance to win the game. I still like Notre Dame better, because they're going to be rolling. They're going to be playing some confident football during that Georgia Tech game. But that and Purdue, those are games I would watch for where I'd say, you might win. Don't know how easy it's going to be. Then the next week, after Navy, they come back home. They play Florida State. Do I trust? I've seen DJU play in this stadium before. He has a team around him, obviously, but he was playing for a good team then. He actually threw for a lot of yards. They ended up losing the football game. Notre Dame at home. When you give me two teams who, on a neutral field, I would personally, at Spencer Sportsbook, set the point spread at under 2 or 3 points, then I'm going to lean towards the home team far more often than not. I like Mike Norvell, but I like Marcus Freeman. DJU is fine. I think Riley Leonard's better. You give me a better quarterback at home with rosters that are at the very least comparable. If you want to give a slight edge to Florida State, that's fine. I think as long as they win that game, they're a double lock to go to the playoff. The Texas A&M game, certainly. But Notre Dame has a preseason win total of 10.5 for a reason. This schedule is favorable. Next 2 weeks, easy wins. Virginia at home, not going to be a problem. Neutral site game against Army the following week. Just stop the run. Now, easier said than done. Army's not going to let that, or Notre Dame's not going to let that happen. Not against Army. I'm sorry to the Knights, but it will not. So is Spencer? Do you think Notre Dame is going 12-0? Is that what you're predicting? Nope. Last week of the regular season, it will have been over a month and a half since they have been playing in a true road environment. They're going to go to the Coliseum. USC will be plenty motivated. They will have more losses on the schedule. And I think Lincoln Riley and company, who I'm higher on than a lot of people in the college football pundit space, I think USC wins that game and ends Notre Dame's perfect season. But Notre Dame at 11-1 get themselves into the playoff. They're probably the number 5 or 6 seed, and they get to host a first-round playoff game. And if they're playing the Group of 5 champion, they're probably going to the second round, because is the Group of 5 champion going to walk into South Bend and win? That's unlikely. So, my first record prediction of the year. Oh, gosh, this is literally my favorite time of year. I get giddy thinking about going through and predicting every single game for a team in a given season. If there's a team whose record you want me to go through here on the show, drop me a comment, shoot me a note, at @McLaughlinCFB on Twitter. Just let me know. We're doing Alabama next. And I know a lot of you would love to see Alabama fall off a cliff. I am not in that boat. This episode of Locked On College Football is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, eBay Motors has got everything that you want, and your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. I cannot see a world in which Alabama is winning fewer than 10 games this year. I'm about to predict them to win even more than that with Luke Robinson of Locked On Alabama. Let's just hop right into it here, Luke. Game by game. Alabama opens with Western Kentucky and South Florida at home. I see zero chance of an upset there. Then week 3, they go at Wisconsin. This will be the first major test for Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide. Wisconsin, I think, is a slightly improved and solid football team. I don't think they're on Alabama's level. I think there's a quarterback gap in this game, and I think Kalen DeBoer is an excellent head coach. I don't dislike Luke Fickell. I dislike DeBoer more. You give me the better roster, better coach, better quarterback, even in Madison. I think they go in. They're favored by 10.5 points against the Badgers in week 3. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I think Alabama could cover that number.
I do too, and I went ahead yesterday and bought mine and my friends' tickets for the game through Game Time, the Game Time app. I tell people all the time, I don't even look at the live read anymore. I tell them my personal experience with Game Time, and I bought those 4 tickets through Game Time, and I'm excited about going. And I'll tell you, this is one of those situations. Sometimes it's a great matchup, but the schedule may get you. If I was Wisconsin, I would rather be in Tuscaloosa this year and in Madison next year when Alabama's going to be breaking in a new quarterback. Luke Fickell will be year 3. If I were Wisconsin, I would rather play Alabama next year. I think this year with a seasoned quarterback like Jalen Milroe and with this new style and Kalen DeBoer knowing, hey, can't we lose this one? I feel like Alabama's going to take care of business there. I do.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game to watch, maybe for like 2.5, 3 quarters. And I think eventually Bama pulls away. I don't think they go out guns blazing and just, get up 17-3 and the game feels like it's over in a millisecond. But I do like Alabama in that spot. And then, Luke, they come back home for what could be considered the game of the year in the SEC. There are a lot of different ways that you could go with that particular moniker, but Alabama hosting Georgia in Tuscaloosa, Kirby Smart Kalen DeBoer. Who knows how many times these guys are going to go head-to-head as the head coaches of these programs throughout their careers. Meeting number one, I've got Alabama winning this game at home. I do not have the Tide going undefeated. They are going to lose one game in the regular season. We'll get to that later, but I think they're going to have enough, just enough at home to knock off Georgia.
I'm with you. And I know some Georgia people will say I'm just being a homer, but I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, Alabama has had Kirby Smart's number, had Georgia's number for that matter. I mean, going back to Mark Richt. In 2008, of course, the blackout game, then in 2012, and maybe the best SEC championship game. And if that wasn't it, it was probably the 2018 SEC championship game, which also saw Alabama winning. So, I'm with you. And I know that all those were Nick Saban, and this is a different coaching staff. But I'm also very high on Kalen DeBoer myself. And I feel like it's going to be that's going to be an electric atmosphere. Bryant-Denny is not known as the most intimidating place, even though Alabama's record's incredible there. I mean, Alabama is known to have some golf claps occasionally because they're so used to winning and winning big there. I mean, if you come in ranked number one, you're probably leaving not ranked number one. But I think with the new coaching staff, this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a 6:30 kickoff. It's going to be a bananas atmosphere, so I'm looking forward to it.
I think that's going to have every eyeball that cares at all about college football, no matter what conference you are a fan of watching. So I can't wait for that. Next two games at Vanderbilt. Poor Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. It's going to be a.
But you're right about that, Vandy. Like, not only they also get Texas. I mean, look, you could either get Oklahoma or Texas. No offense to Oklahoma this year. Oklahoma's been better than Texas over the last 20 years, I think. But this year, clearly, I think Texas is better. And so
they should be.
Get the good end of that stick. I mean, they just.
I know.
They got a rough draw.
Every conference needs a Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt, they do their job well. They do their job well in the SEC. South Carolina the next week, I don't, I'm going to predict the record for every major college football team on this very show. I have South Carolina pulling an upset that you probably don't expect, but that's for a different day. South Carolina home, that's a win. At Tennessee, I know that Tennessee walked away a winner the last time these two teams played. I went back and forth between this game and two games after for Alabama's lone loss of the season, but something tells me that Tennessee with a first-year quarterback against Jalen Milroe, again, I like Josh Heupel a lot, but if you're giving me two teams that are going to be on pretty even footing, that are both going to have high expectations for the upcoming season, yes, I lean towards the team at home, but if I can find an advantage in my head when I'm making a pick on these games, it makes me think, yeah, I think that could end up being the difference there. I take Jalen Milroe over Nico on today as we're recording the show August 31st.
Spoiler alert, I also will have Alabama going 11-1, and I think this will probably be the one, and I'm just playing the odds here. I mean, the odds probably say it should be Georgia. But, again, I've already explained Alabama at home, et cetera. That's why I believe that. So then I have to come down to probably, Missouri at home, Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma. I'll explain those others later, but I will say of those, I think Tennessee is the one Alabama is probably most likely to lose. And I wish it weren't true, and I don't have my heart in this, but if you're making me choose which one of those will Alabama lose, I'm going to say Tennessee, and I'm going to bite my tongue doing it.
The reason I like Bama in this spot is because Tennessee, they ran the ball very well a season ago. I think Josh Heupel wants to get back to being able to throw the football. Just my sense of what he has been offensively and what Tennessee can be offensively. I love this Alabama defensive staff. You got Maurice Lindquist and Kane Womack in there, a couple of former FBS head coaches serving as co-defensive coordinators. The Alabama secondary has got plenty of players. Yeah, they lost Caleb Downs, but look at the guys they brought in and the recruiting classes they have. I think that's a win. I think they win the next week at home against Missouri as well. I think Missouri's win total is slightly inflated because their schedule is very easy. I think Missouri's a good team. I don't think they have the same win total as Alabama. And yet at Bryant-Denny Stadium, which now has Nick Saban's name in it, I forgot what
Nick Saban Field.
Nick Saban Field. Alabama's an 8.5 point favorite. What does that tell you? That Bama just has a tougher schedule than Missouri, and they're the better team.
Well, and we had the color commentator for Missouri on last night on our Sports Splits program that we do out of Alexander City every Tuesday night. And it was funny I was talking to him, and I thought I was giving a compliment. And towards the last question I asked him, I said, look, I'm looking at Missouri's schedule, and I just don't see how they don't go 11-1. And he fired back with, well, who do you think the loss is? And I said, well, I mean, I think it's Alabama. But, I'm looking at the other one, seeing I just don't know where Missouri's going to lose. And so I feel like Missouri's going to be in the playoff hunt, all those things. But their schedule is probably the easiest in the SEC, honestly. I mean, given what you could.
It's one of them. No, it's 100% one of. I think Missouri this year is what Ole Miss has been in the years past. I think this is a different sort of Ole Miss team where they've got dynamic playmakers. They're a good team, but you could look up, see an inflated record, and then when they go up against a big boy, they could get beat pretty badly. I think that is entirely within reach. So that leaves 3 games left on Alabama's schedule. If you count Mercer, I guess 4, but I don't even know off the top of my head where Mercer is, and I cover college sports in several capacities for a living. But at LSU, at Oklahoma, hosting Auburn. I don't think they're losing the Iron Bowl at home, and so that brings us down to LSU and Oklahoma. I think LSU is the better team. I like that they've revamped their defensive staff. Death Valley, tough place to go play. Now, Norman is not a cakewalk. I am just higher this year on LSU than I am on Oklahoma. I think at LSU is the one game Alabama will lose this year. I think it could be crazy. I think this could be a coin flip sort of game, but that's where I've got their one loss.
Yeah, I'm going to say Alabama wins at LSU. And look, Alabama they play as well at LSU as anybody does, probably including LSU. I mean, for the longest time, Alabama didn't lose in Baton Rouge. I mean, for like 3 decades. So I just feel like Alabama's a better team. I like some of LSU's talent. Obviously, Perkins is incredible. I like the new quarterback, but they did lose a Heisman winner at quarterback, and they lost 2 fantastic wide receivers. I like Will Campbell a lot, obviously, just an incredible offensive lineman. But in the end, I think Alabama wins that game. And then, of course, you mentioned Mercer, which is in Georgia, by the way. And then Oklahoma. I think Alabama gets out of Oklahoma. I know the weather will probably be against Alabama. It'll be much colder than what they're used to playing in that time of year, I believe. However, I think by that time of the year, Oklahoma, with their gauntlet, I mean, their schedule is ridiculous, especially compared to Texas. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they're going to be pretty beat up by the time they get there. And Alabama is used to playing this run of teams. I mean, maybe not this particular hard of a schedule, but Alabama's used to being, having a target on their back, being everybody's biggest game of the year. And I think they're going to be fine. I think Oklahoma's going to see what it's like in the SEC year one. In Texas, if you're an Oklahoma fan, it's unfortunate that I think Texas, of all the teams you could get, Texas gets Mississippi State, they get Vandy, and they get Arkansas. Meanwhile, Oklahoma gets Georgia and Bama and Auburn and LSU. I mean, and Tennessee.
Didn't do them any favors. Did not do Oklahoma any favors. The SEC with their schedule. But I think between Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, 3 games on the road, I could see Bama losing as many as 2 of those games, but I don't see them losing more than 2, and I think they were able to find a way to win 3 of them, particularly that home game against Georgia. So if you were looking for a Kalen DeBoer Alabama drop-off here, you will find no such predictions here on today's show. Luke and I both have Bama 11-1 this year. Luke Robinson, Locked On Alabama. Appreciate the time as always.
Appreciate you. Thank you, bud.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.